Hello, hello. Welcome to Monday Mentor with Jen. I'm Jen Whitmer, and every week I bring a fantastic guest to help us grow in our life, in our leadership. This week is the fantastic Addie Yoder, and I will tell you all about her while she stares, embarrassingly at the screen because I forgot to pull her off, as is my job. If you ever doubted I was live, you now know that it really is live. I took a hard break for 2 full weeks, and last week I felt so sluggish coming back in. And I was really excited that Addie could join us because I think one of the ways through sluggishness is getting the chaos back in the order. And I think that is Addie's superpower. So she is a mom of 4 like me. She helps run a farm business. She is a leader in the agricultural space. She is a life coach. She is a podcaster. She is my friend. And I am just so happy that Addie is here today. Addie, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited that you asked.
Oh, I have been waiting for the right time for you. Just like the perfect little, this is for Addie. So I'm super excited. So one of the things I love to do every week with my guests is to start off with who you are and how you got here. And before you answer that question, I do want to say, if you are here live in the comments, like Hannah's here, welcome. Let us know that you're here live. If you're catching the replay, let us know that you're here on the replay. And if you've got questions, depending on where you are, they're below you. Sometimes they're over there. You know where the comment box is. So now back to Addie. Tell us who you are and how you got to this amazing space in your life.
Well, hello. Like Jen said, I'm Addie Yoder. I am a farmer in Northeast Missouri. We raise corn and soybeans and have a little bit of cattle. And in the past couple of years, we have a pretty elaborate sweet corn operation. I have 4 kids. The sweet corn comes from my oldest being in high school and doing all of the FFA things and having to have a business of her own. So we're deeply embedded in the entrepreneurship space at the Yoder house. But personally, I am a reader and a life coach and a personal development junkie of sorts. And I became a coach after I hired one. I, am a mom and have all these other external things about who I am, right? Like a farmer and a mom and all of the things that I didn't make the time to figure out who I was. And hired someone to kind of help me achieve some goals and got a whole heck of a lot more out of it than that. And that coach was like, hey, I think you'd be really good at this because you kind of already do it. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about because you never see those things about yourself, right? So with some coercion from my family and some self-reflection, I got certified to coach almost 5 years ago now, and have been helping women kind of sort their chaos. I talk about coaching a lot. It's like dumping out your junk drawer and then sorting it all out and putting it back in neatly. That's what I help people do.
Yeah. And you are excellent at it. And I always appreciate Addie and I, as fellow coaches, often are voxering, calling each other back and forth and like, hey, I need a coach friend. And she's very, very good at it. And one of the things that I think you are so good at is talking about routines in a way that is really accessible. So first of all, I just need to admit to y'all, I hate the word routine. Things about routine make me just go, I mean, I know that I need them. I was an elementary school teacher. I had 4 kids under the age of 6. I know that routines are valuable. I still just bristle at the word. And I think listening to you over the years has been really helpful in my mindset shift about the importance and value of routines. So let's just kind of define some terms a little bit. To you, what is a routine? What does that word mean?
To me, a routine one kind of gets a bad rap, right? Like it kind of has this negative, I don't know, negative, but it feels heavy. Like I think about, remember when we had little kids and they're like, you need to establish a bedtime routine. And everything that told you to establish a bedtime routine was at least 28 things long.
And 59 and a half minutes.
Yes. And at 7:30 p.m., you're like, no, I just want you to go to bed. Get out of my business. And so routines kind of get that, right? And so in my house and in my world, routines are really just the words you say. They're rhythms, they're patterns of how we do things for me, so I don't forget to do things.
Right.
And so, they're just these like systems, little systems. And maybe it's like subtle. Like in the morning, I do mom things, and in the afternoon, I do Addie things. And so that way there's a clear space and a clear definition. And I can also explain that to other people. So it doesn't have to be this big elaborate thing, but it really is a rhythm. So you're shifting words, in my opinion, is a good one.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that was super helpful, and you even just kind of said it, that you can clarify and you're clear enough on what you're doing that you can tell other people about it. That sometimes, because here's the thing, we all have routines. We're all doing them all the time. But when we choose to be the actor, like I'm the one establishing this routine and I can clarify what it is and why, that intentionality turns the routine into something that I'm in charge of versus I'm just kind of at the mercy of it. And I think that that shift is really helpful. I can tell other people, this is my routine. This is my rhythm. And it, like you said, so you don't forget stuff. Like we have a mantra in my house: keys, wallet, phone. Keys, wallet, phone. Do I have keys, wallet, phone? You know, like before we walk out of the house, it's just like this little rhythm: keys, wallet, phone. If I would have thought earlier, I would have put a bell at the door, like keys, wallet, phone. Yeah, just to make it fun, but I didn't. But that is really helpful in how we function in our life and in our leadership. So before I ask you the next question, I'd love if you were listening in the comments or watching the replay. Do you like routine? Do you not like routine? Does that word rub you the wrong way? Or do you have that middle ground of it's important, but I don't love it? So just let us know in the comments, because I'd love for you to talk a little bit more, Addie, about why routines are so important. Like, what do they give us in our lives?
So in my life, and I'm sure other people's lives too, routines do two main things. For me, they reduce decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't get out of bed and think, I wonder what I should do today. Like you probably don't get done with your stuff and think, all right, I'm going to go to bed and not take off your clothes and brush your teeth. That's a routine. You just do those things because you've already decided that that's how we do life, right? So they reduce that what am I going to do next decision.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need more decisions. We don't need any more. So if I can find a place where I can reduce them in an established pattern or flow, that's great. It also clarifies expectations to all the people that live in my house. Like, just know that in the morning, we're not going to turn on the TV. In the morning, we're going to do X, Y, Z. And in the afternoon, we're going to do something different. Or, during school, this is our pattern. And when we get home, this is our, you come in, you get a snack, you do your homework, and we don't ask questions about it. We just do it. And that's a gift to all of us. I had a friend recently who was like, I was trying to get my kids ready to school and my husband usually does it and they wouldn't do this and they wouldn't do this. And we all ended up in tears. And I was like, that's because they didn't know what to expect. Mm. They didn't know because you're not the normal person. You were excited to get more stuff done, but they were like, excuse me, what's happening?
I love that second point. I think is so important. Like, and that it clarifies the expectations of the people around you. So like Rachel's agreeing with you about this. It takes out some decision-making. It creates that automation. But I think about like, when I go back to some of my favorite leaders that I have learned from, we had a daily 5-minute stand-up. And so this was a situation where everybody worked in the office. We were all there. And it was literally a 5-minute stand-up. And we knew at 9 a.m., that's what we would walk to that office, 5 minutes with the one thing that we had to get done today. And if we needed any help with it. And that was it. And it was and it set us up for the day. It was a routine that was super helpful and it was intentional. And, if somebody was traveling and they missed it, it flowed, that idea of rhythm. But that routine created such a space for us to get clear and everybody knew what to expect. So I didn't expect that, the director of communication wasn't going to be available to help me in the afternoon because I knew this was her one thing today and she wasn't going to be, like whatever, like it just created those expectations. And it's so, so valuable.
And you were never caught off guard by having to have that information. You're never like, what? I'm supposed to tell you who? You always knew. You just went in there and that's why it took 5 minutes.
Yeah. And that's why I think when we talk about routines or rhythms, there are other words that we use all the time in business that we think are amazing, like systems, like agendas, like these things that we talk about. But routines are just this overall big picture. in how we, like you said, reduce decision fatigue and establish clarity and expectations. So one of the big mistakes I think people make, besides the don't fence me in, man, because I'm feeling you on that. You need some of the flex. Flexible routines are really Addie Yoder's specialty, actually. So one of the mistakes people make, I think, is that rigidity. So how do we start establishing a routine if we have that feeling of don't fence me in, man?
I think personally, and one, recognize that routines are individual. There's no one size fits all.
Yeah.
Recognize that everybody does things differently. Everyone does things at different times of day. Everyone has different things that are important to them. So don't look at my life and think that yours needs to be like mine. One thing that like gets me all wound up this time of year is that big push to be like, all right, you have to have this morning routine. Get up, drink coffee, journal, read something inspirational, have all workout, put all of these good things into you before 6 a.m. And I'm like, hard pass. Like, I'm a morning person, and those things generally work for me, but don't fence me in, and I like fences. I think that the key to routines is to start small. Like maybe make it vague, like morning versus afternoon. Maybe make it a little bit loose, because if you decide, it's like health and fitness and weight loss, right? If I'm like, all right, it's January 1st, I'm going to do this 1 hour workout and never eat carbs again and only drink water. By Saturday, you're going to drink a Diet Coke and think, well, that's that. I tried. And routines are the same way. If you try to add too much in at once, you're going to feel that failure that maybe isn't quite true, but causes you to just totally derail on these great intentions that you had.
Yeah. One of the things that I think, Addie, the reason you do this so well is I'm going to share a little bit about you, is that you are a self-disclosed perfectionist. Like, this is not a surprise to anybody who knows you. So how do you overcome some of the emotions around perfectionism? Because I think when we're establishing routines, it looks beautiful on my whiteboard or on my Post-it notes or on my screen or on my calendar. But then that can feel like, if I break this, so why try? So like, how do you emotionally get through that?
So gosh, we're walking through this hard at my house because my oldest is also a perfectionist in progress.
Oh, number 3 here. So, who is the same age as your one? We're doing okay.
Yes. So, I always have to stop and think about what the story in my head is.
Yeah.
We talked about this, you and I. It's like, what am I telling myself about what's happening? And is it true?
Yeah.
And then one thing that I've been walking through with clients a lot this year, and I don't know if it's more because of social media or what the strong shift is, but who told you that it had to be that way? Who told you that you had to have the dishes done and the laundry changed and lipstick on before your kids got on the bus? Who told you that? I don't know.
I don't know who told you that.
Maybe we should talk about that. Because there are things that are the most important. And I talk about that with clients a lot too. Like, what are the absolute bare bones things that you have to get done? Do those things. And then if you want to add something else in, great. But the things that like are required for survival and for you to have clothes and to feed your family, do those things first.
Yeah.
And then be okay with the rest. And so the emotional part of it is just managing that spiral in your brain. It's what is most important and what is real and what is the actual thing that needs to be done first.
Yeah. I think that's such a helpful frame. I mean, I love to talk about the stories we tell ourselves, because the narratives that run our mind are the realities that we create. So we have to look at that. And I love the question, who told you that? Who told you that is such a great question to ask us about, why did I think that? And I think about, especially in this arena of New Year, New You, because if I see that one more time, I might throw my computer.
But
it's like the people who think that their routine is the best and here's what you should do, rather than this way of, what are your values? What do you have to get done? What works for you to live your life the way you want to live it? Not the way the person who wrote how to set good morning routines, because this is the way I did it, works. And I think that idea that routines are individual is so important.
And the other thing that I would add in here is that routines are not permanent.
Yes.
Like in my life, I said I'm a farmer. Routines are seasonal. Wintertime routine is completely different than springtime routine. And in the fall, there's extra people that stay at my house and everything is upside down. And I have to manage myself in that situation because, to be real honest, very few other people care about my routine. So I have to figure that out and I have to deal with that and know that these routines are fluid and they are constantly shifting, and that I need to figure out, like, okay, which pillars do I want to keep? And which ones do I need to flex, and how can I be okay with that?
Yeah, those are, I think that's so important that you start a new job, you're going to need a new routine. And we know that, like, that seems like, well, duh. But then for whatever reason, when we're trying to set personal routines, we're like, it has to be the same every time.
All the time.
All the time, forever. Yeah, routines are not permanent. And also, I think one of the things I've really learned from you is that routines are meant to serve you.
100%.
Like, say a little bit more about that.
I like, it all comes back to that it's your routine philosophy. It's not me trying to be Jen. You have a very specific morning routine, but you also don't live 30 miles from your school. Like your life and your kids and the ages of your kids and your job and your spouse's job. It is all very personal. And so it has to work for you, or you're just going to be frustrated and unhappy.
Absolutely. And I think, to kind of start wrapping up, because I can't believe what time it is, that it has to work for you and what you want. So, like, for example, I'm going to tell a little bit of Addie's story. I always love watching Addie during harvest, because the month of September, not only is Addie feeding her own regular family of 6, she's like feeding all the people that are harvesting, usually corn and then soybeans. And like, there's just all these other things, and her routine changes. And I watch it happen every year. And because that's what's important to your business. Your business requires that routine to change.
Yeah. And we talked about that actually just yesterday, because I was working on routines with a client and I was working on podcast stuff. And I was like, okay, so how do I filter this? Because Jocelyn and I hadn't talked about it lately. And while it's going to sound a little backwards, we have to filter things when we set routines and when we make decisions. We're like, okay, the farm comes first. Farm comes first, then the kids. And then, like other stuff, because that has to happen and that pays our bills and it's all time sensitive. And so everybody knows that in those seasons, this is what's got to happen. And we just got to put our head down and go.
Yeah. And like you said, it's for a season, but it's not like those things are mutually exclusive. They serve one another.
For sure.
Because what we're always trying to do in any kind of routine or personal growth is to become more whole. I hate the term work-life balance, and I'm always looking to integration. And so
we don't have that at our house.
No, but you do have integration. People are involved, and what needs to involve them, they're involved in, and everybody's on the same page. Like you said, it clarifies the expectations for everybody else. They know what to expect. We've had some parenting things at our house this past week, and some really clear activities known as consequences have come into play for someone, and it is very clear. And we had a whole conversation about it because that expectation piece was so important, and it's changing all of our routines. It's changing all of them for a couple weeks. And so I think that idea that your routines are meant to serve you and they're not permanent is so, so helpful. So one of the things you said at the very middle, in the middle of what we were talking about, was to start small. So can you give us one little example of what's a good thing to start with in establishing a small routine?
I would, I don't know that I could be like, oh, you should get up at this time. But no. I think about like what you want.
Yeah.
What do you want in your life to be different? Do you want to add in something? Do you want to take away something? Do you want to get up a little earlier for XYZ reason? And just pick one thing. Maybe you want to be better about a skincare routine at night. So you set an alarm on your phone, and when you brush your teeth, you just go do that too.
Mm-hmm.
Just pick one thing that you think is going to make you feel happier and add that in. And when you forget that that's supposed to be a routine, that's and you can pick something else.
Yeah. Well, I love that. Like, it's not you should get up at this time. It's what do you want more of? And pick one thing to get there. So good. So good. Okay. We really have to go. I can't believe it. Actually, I'm not shocked at all. We could talk for hours. But tell the people where to find you. Like, so what are you doing? And tell the people where to find you. I mean, this is your website, but what are you talking about and where can we keep up with you?
Yes, that is my website. That is my website. So go there. I have a podcast called Grace and Growth with Addie. It drops new episodes every Thursday. Right now, we're talking a little bit about a lot of things. So go there and hang out. There is also a book club. If you are a reader, I have a book club on Facebook. It's called Book Club with Addie. All things can be found on Instagram at addie.yoder and at addieyoder.com.
Yeah. There we go. And Addie is so great, especially if you're a reader. I'm looking at some of the people in the comments that I know you're here. You're a reader. Addie always has great book recommendations. Fantastic. And so make sure to follow her. She gives great life advice and just is in general a joyful, wonderful person to have around. I'm so glad that we are friends and that you could come today and talk a little bit about routines and why this is so important to our lives, and that I just am really, really grateful for your time. So thank you
for having me.
Absolutely. So next week, everybody, I will be on as a solo Monday mentor talking about goals and why it's not too late. And it is actually never too late to talk about goals. And so you haven't missed it. And so next week, we're going to talk about how do you start establishing goals in really healthy ways. So join us next week, every week here, Mondays at 1 p.m. Eastern. And I will see you then. Thanks, everybody. Bye.